First of all, thank you very much to everybody involved in bringing Blippar here. We're very thrilled to have the opportunity to tell you about it. Also, thanks to Maddie for that inspirational speech just now. It really was something else. It reminded me actually about a speech I saw 3.5 years ago where the speaker said, I can't remember anything he said in the hour apart from one thing, which was, imagine humanity as a wall made out of bricks and basically try and put your brick in the wall. You're certainly doing that, and I think that ties in very closely to what you were telling us. I'm sure that OBE is far too low as an admission to the shoot for the damehood, I think. But yeah, no, it was very inspiring, and I actually just tweeted to say, how does anyone follow that? I'm going to try and use it as inspiration. I've been shaking myself on my way up, and I touched my ear on the way up the steps. And I'm hoping that what I tell you today about Blippar and about augmented reality inspires some of you in some direction. So that might well be in your jobs. It might well be in the marketing of your business, if that's something that's relevant to your role. But I'm also going to tell you about what we're doing in education, which is my job as head of education at Blippar, because not only can that help in the workplace, where a lot of education needs to be done in this very fast-changing professional environment with so many new skills to learn, but it can also be something which happens in the classroom. So technology is changing the classroom, and if we can use it to change those things which are wrong with our system, to change things to prepare people better to follow their own dreams, to be inspired and to inspire others, then that's something we want to be part of, and I hope that I can tell you about what we're doing in that area. And the third thing I'm going to get onto after that is to show you what we as a technology company are doing to, we hope, change the world, change behavior, change how people use technology in their daily lives, and how it can be additive. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, first of all, so you know who's talking to you. My name is Colum Elliot-Kelly. All of those names are about as Irish as they get, but my accent is about as English as it gets, because I moved with my family when I was about 11, went through the extremely traditional English education system, which Maddie will be no stranger to, with which there are lots of problems, but lots of great things too. And really, from a very early age, my father is a teacher, and I've been thinking and kind of ideating on how education can be changed, what's wrong with it, what's right with it, and how do we make things better. And that inspired me 3 years ago to set up a business delivering e-learning content from the very best universities in the world, starting with the UK, but all over the world, packaging it into the kind of materials that can be used in the classroom, building a system which allows students to kind of ask questions and to be assessed and so on, so they can use it educationally, and then delivering that to schools all over the world. So it was about using technology to connect the absolute best minds in a field with students. I exited that about a year ago, and after about 4 months, finally convinced Blippar to listen to me about my ideas for education. They were thinking about the space, and we're doing some incredible things in the space already. Luckily, they decided to empower me to develop a strategy and implement a strategy for this one incredible company in the educational space. Alongside that, about a year ago, I started preparing to establish an NGO, an international NGO, I hope, which looks at how we can use digital education in post-crisis geographies, so post-conflict or post-natural disaster, or areas which are really on the knife edge of development. Education is so key to making that society fall the right side of the knife edge. So more than enough about me. I'll begin by telling you a little bit about what Blippar is, and there are some words on the slide behind me for those either listening in translation, it might be easier, or those without such good English as everyone else I've met. So we launched in 2011. The technology is essentially a combination of image recognition technology and creative technology to deliver a creative experience to the user. What you do, and sadly we weren't able to connect the tablet to the screen today, you essentially point our app at something in the world that we have made blippable, as we say, that our app can recognize. And you see a experience. So it might be a video, it might be a link to another website, it might be a three-dimensional experience. I have a video to come after this, which will explain it a lot better. But fundamentally, that's what it is. It's a combination of image recognition and the creative expertise and the creative technology. So how is that useful? Well, initially, we've used it for marketing purposes. So it's a digital marketing company up until about a year ago. We work with brands like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nike, Converse. We work with magazines like Vogue in Germany right now, like The Times in London, Evening Standard in London. We've done about 1,000 campaigns worldwide in 3 years in this marketing space. So what they are doing is using our technology to make their brands a little bit more engaging for the consumer, and essentially to turn the can of Coke into a digital media channel. This can be used for, well, almost anything. So up on the top left, for example, we have find recipes. So these are all campaigns that we've done. So a tomato ketchup bottle, for example, can be using the phone turned into, you can just about see there that there's some links and some, essentially turns it into a book which you can tap through and see video recipes, how to use the Heinz product in a recipe. Over on the left-hand side here, that's triggered from an ad in a newspaper. You can hold your fingers over the phone and check to see how a certain color of nail varnish looks on your hand, or according to your skin tone. You can then obviously buy it. You can watch the TV spot and so on. You can play games, so that's something that in the video you'll see. So it's something that really works for kids off, for example, cereal boxes, off, I guess, magazines, of toys and games. This is the one we did with Coke. It's particularly cool. Not sure if they actually went around Europe, but in the UK at least, we had these 49p thin bottles of Coke, and in order to make them a little bit more enticing a product and to really launch the product, Coke made it blippable. And as you can see on the picture on the right-hand side, some headphones appear on the Coke can. The top 10 songs, I think it is, for that week on Spotify start playing, and the Coke can becomes a media player. Exclusive content, for example, this is Juice Burst. It's a juice company. On the bottle, you have to blip it to get access to a certain competition, or to a certain reward, or to a certain piece of content. So it's something that really encourages you to buy the bottle and to interact much more with that bottle than you otherwise would. And here's the one we did with Vogue, which allows you to look at some of the adverts and say, okay, that looks amazing, and you don't thumb down the page, you don't take note that that's what you want to look at. You go immediately online, for example, or go through an e-commerce channel to make your purchase. So just to bring that to something that's a little easier to understand, it's a lot easier to explain once you've had sight of it. So I've included there should be a video about to play here. There we go. So it's just a couple of minutes. Okay, so as you can see, there's some examples from some of our previous campaigns, turning that cereal box on, that magazine, turning a cube into an interactive cube, which allows you to play a game. What's the point? And this is a question that we're very much prepared for, because we have a very defined answer to it, well-defined answer to it. What is the point of this experience from a marketing point of view, from a business point of view? It looks cool. It's incredibly exciting, but what does it translate to bottom line? Does it have an impact on consumer behavior? Well, what it does is, it first of all allows you to have an in-the-moment experience with a company's product or a company's brand. It's not something that you have to trust the TV spot to get in front of the right eyeballs. It's not something that you have to continuously pound people with advertisements on Facebook or on Gmail, things where the eyeball count is really the only metric that you can track. It's something which, when someone picks up a can of Coke and can blip it, they are having a longer and much deeper, much more and richer positive experience with your brand than any other advertising channel. So it's not necessarily about reach in the way that trying to get 2 million Facebook ads out there in the hope that 100 people see them. It's about those who you do reach and those who you do entice to blip something because there's a good reward at the end of it. It's about making sure that that experience is deep and powerful and long-lasting. As I said, my role is head of education at Blippar, so what I focus on is not necessarily the marketing side of the business or the commercial side of the business. It's in trying to adapt this technology to the world of education. So how are we going to do that? Really in two ways. We're going to do some of the things that you saw on that video and that you'll see in a moment for textbook publishers and printers, toys and games manufacturers, anyone essentially who has some content, some physical content which is going into a classroom. We believe two things about what we can offer them. We can first of all make it a better piece of content. We can make it more engaging. We can make it more effective. We can make your textbook not just be 150 pages, but actually be 150 pages of visual, exciting, immersive content that a student of any age will blip and will have a better experience through Blippar than they would have purely off the physical page. The second thing that we think we can offer to educational publishers is a way for them to put digital content onto physical content. So everybody knows that the classroom and that learning in general is going digital. Nobody knows to what extent, and no one knows really what that means for the traditional educational market, let's call it. I have my own perspectives on it, which I'll share in a few slides' time. What we can do through augmented reality, which you've had a little taste of now, is make the digital complement the physical, rather than have the two working in opposition to one another. So that's really taking some experience we've had from our marketing DNA and saying, well, what we've done with the Coke can is we've turned that into a digital media channel. We've turned the product into a media player. Well, we can do that with a textbook. We can turn it into a much more effective, engaging, exciting way of delivering digital content. And we know that digital content can help when delivered in the right way. I mentioned that there's two ways we're approaching education. One is the publishers, the content owners, the content producers. And the second way is by empowering teachers and their students to create these experiences themselves. So we have a tool called Blip Builder, which allows you, anyone here could create a blip, which is an augmented reality experience. All you need is the image that you want the app to recognize, and then you can design in a very engaging, immersive way on Blip Builder what happens. It's drag and drop, it's very intuitive. What we're doing is allowing teachers and students to use that tool and to create themselves. That also goes for non-traditional learning environments. So the workplace, for example, we are working with thousands of managers and HR departments and even tiny SMEs and startups all over the world to allow them to make the entire workplace, any learning environment, to make it a interactive learning environment. And that helps them because not only can they turn the sign that's on the door on the way out that no one looks at into a much more compelling thing to look at, but you can also visualize things. You can show people exactly how to do a certain task while they're standing, let's say, at the machine by playing them a video which is triggered by augmented reality. You can allow that content to be updated any time because it's digital and because you're not necessarily having to print out thousands of pieces of content which try to say everything. You can constantly change and adapt what's being delivered so that you can bring someone through a learning journey while they move around the office. It's making that learning environment into an interactive and learning environment, and that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to us what learning environment that is. There's another video here which I'll play in a moment, and I just want to explain exactly what it's showing you. We have a pilot underway with schools all over the world. We have about 3,500 schools, and we had the opportunity to film how Blippar went down in one of the classrooms, and this we did about 9 months ago, and it really was the first kind of test. It was almost a pre-pilot where we said, okay, does this work? Do kids get more engaged? I'll show you the video, it's another couple of minutes, and then tell you a little bit more about the response we had from teachers and students.
Basically what we do, we're a bridge between the physical and digital world. We bring the physical world to life. So what we did is a few of the exercises in your math section are interactive. Did it help you understand better, or?
Yeah, it definitely did. It was a lot easier to see visually, as in what the angles would be and how the ship would go around the island.
I'd much rather work on something that's interactive and 3D because I find it more interesting than just seeing what's written down.
I think it makes it like more energetic and more fun. So it makes it look less and like feel shorter and make you more like happy and stuff because it's all bright, it's all colourful. I think Blippar's good because it really helps the students to visualise what's happening, and it makes it a little bit more exciting for them as well. That, you know, they can move things around and there's colour and that sort of thing, and they're not having to read from a sheet of paper, which a lot of them find quite boring. They know as they get to a question, oh, this one I can have a quick look at, and they can use it almost independently, so you're not having to tell them, you know, go to this page, scan this bit, and they're using it to aid their own work rather than being guided to by you, which would be lovely. Certain topics are particularly difficult. Any of the more geometrical topics are really hard for them to kind of visualise, especially when it's flat on a 2D sheet of paper. So it's really good for that. It helps them amazingly. Some of the students today were saying themselves, oh, this would be great for revision. So that would be really good as well. They really love doing it today, and I think certainly the younger ones could very easily get into a habit of doing that.
So that was, as I said, a pre-pilot which we did, in which they very kindly allowed us to come in to film some interviews with the teachers and with the students. As you heard the teachers say there, the reaction from the students is not only one of huge excitement, it's also one where it allows them to visualize certain things which are difficult to visualize a lot more easily. And this really is where we see the most exciting use of Blippar in education. It's about enhancing textbooks, turning them into augmented reality textbooks. And one of the examples we had in that pre-pilot, which not many of you will be able to see, sadly, but this is a page, and it asks you to visualize a cube, and the exercise is to try and work out what the volume is. It's actually a series of cubes forming a kind of house-type structure. It asks you to visualize what's the volume, what's the surface area, how does this look from the top, how does it look from the side, and so on. We know that 30% of learners worldwide are visual learners. They learn primarily through visualization. So few of the existing educational products allow you to really visualize things fully, because it's a limitation of paper and printing. It's actually a limitation also of just watching something through a browser or through a computer. It's very difficult to really truly visualize something unless you can interact with it, almost touch it, and see it in your world. So understanding how these cubes function is a lot easier if you can, first of all, generate it through an augmented reality app like Blippar, and then look around it as it's on your desk. It comes onto your desk as a 3D object, something that you can then much more easily see and understand. And that's really one of the key strengths we offer. Unlocking educational content from outdoor marketing is something that we've already done in the United States. We ran a campaign called Art Everywhere US, and that we worked with 6 cultural institutions, major cultural institutions, and they released dozens of paintings, the rights to dozens of paintings, which were then printed and put up all over the country. So on the subway, on bus stations, across Times Square, in little leaflets, in magazines, and so on. The idea was, how do we get the country more interested and more, well, how do we get this content, this amazing stuff, to the country and make it more exciting for them to learn about it, and hopefully encourage them to visit the cultural institution. So these posters, these reproductions of these works of art, you point Blippar at them, and content about the artist, about the painting, annotations of the painting so that you understand it better, appears on top of it in augmented reality. It doesn't spoil your experience. It doesn't work in opposition. You actually need to be looking at the painting in order to really experience the AR-enabled content. But it essentially is, it's additive to not only to your cultural experience, also to your learning experience, and it's exciting, it's engaging, and it brings it more into the world of technology, to the world, to the digital world, without necessarily assuming that the physical world is rendered redundant. And the last one is something that's perhaps more relevant directly relevant to the audience. That is turning the workplace into an interactive learning environment. That's something that I covered briefly earlier. It essentially allows you to, anything that requires visualization, anything where visualization is helpful, anything where being shown something practically is helpful. Those are the kinds of things which typically you can only get through digital education, and there are some incredible providers who do that. Or you have to provide it in person, which is not only expensive, but you have scheduling problems, you have people who maybe aren't there at that time, you have people who are simply too busy and therefore miss out. You also have that really lends itself to people who do go and get that content. And those people should, of course, be rewarded, but there are people who are not naturally confident in learning and who learn a lot better when they can access it themselves and when they don't have to. There's that fear of failure, which Maddie spoke about, which really does affect how people get through professional development, because so much of it requires the choice of the self-motivation, essentially. So we feel that delivering that interactively, by turning the entire workplace into something that when you point Blippar at it, it teaches you something about that, either something for your job or something which is the next level of your job, which you need to maybe learn a little bit more to get there. For regulatory reasons, for safety reasons, we think there's a huge amount that can be done if you essentially add a digital layer of content on top of the real world and unlock it by pointing the Blippar app at it. This kind of rounds out what we've been talking about on an educational point of view. We want to let teachers turn their classroom into interactive space. We want to empower them to do that creation themselves, and we especially want to empower the students to do that. We've covered the educational publishers and what Blippar can do for them. It's incredibly easy, it's incredibly intuitive, and it absolutely supports student-created content. And we've had some incredible art projects which are turned into augmented experiences. We've had some books which when you blip the front cover, a student appears and gives his book report. We've had science projects which are just incredibly engaging and really are some of the most creatively impressive things we have been seen produced on Blippar. All created by students, and that's an incredibly important philosophy behind so much of the digital revolution in education, empowering students. It encourages collaboration between students and teachers, and that's another really important point, and something which really is relevant across the learning spectrum, from earliest primary school right up to senior executive education. And that is making sure that the teacher and the student are sharing knowledge and sharing experience as much as it's not anymore a linear delivery model. Obviously, with a 4 or 5-year-old, there's a huge amount more experience in the teacher than the 4 or 5-year-old. But what you can do is say, you create this, you say what your opinion is, or you draw this, or you tell me what you think this means, and I'll lead you to the correct answer, rather than saying, this is the correct answer, learn it, or you're going to fall behind. With AR and with this visualization model, and also with the fact that you have to really engage with the content and go and get it yourself, that really blends well with those philosophies in education, which are much more collaborative than they used to be. That said, we're also putting a lot of technology in place behind the system. We're calling it the education dashboard. Note, not the teacher dashboard. It's something that anyone who's doing any educating with Blippar, anyone who wants to add that digital layer on top of the physical world and unlock it through Blippar, can track what the learners are doing on it, not in a nefarious way, very interactive. They can distribute feedback, they can distribute new goals and new objectives through the dashboard, but it essentially gives a little bit more control to let's say the admin or the educator or the leader over how the app is being used educationally. And that's how we believe we can get it from being something which makes a cereal box cooler to something which not only has an impact in education, but has a measurable impact in education, and measurable on a per person basis, so that everyone gets tailored treatment. So I mentioned earlier that I wanted to conclude by showing you some exciting new developments in where Blippar is going as a company. You are among the first people in the world to see this. We literally launched it a week ago at South by Southwest. It generated a huge amount of coverage, of course, so I can't pretend that you are the first people. But what we've essentially, you're certainly the first people I've shown it to, and perhaps if people grab me after, I can show in person, because it really is pretty cool. I said earlier that when we work with brands and work with publishers, you essentially say, this is what I want to augment. What you do in practice, if anyone's interested, is you upload the picture of the marker, as we call it, which is the trigger image. And then you also upload all the things that you want to appear when you point your phone or your tablet at that marker. And you design how you want that to appear. So it might be a 3D object, or it might be a video, or it might be that game that you saw people playing on the video. Where Blippar is going next, and what we launched and are releasing to the market next month, is what we call visual browsing. So imagine typing a search term into Google. That's typically how people would search. It's text-based, and it's incredibly powerful and absolutely has transformed how we access knowledge. But imagine you saw someone walking down the street in a pair of shoes that you liked, or a dress that you liked, or was driving a car that you liked and that you couldn't necessarily recognize the mark on it. Maybe it's a Jaguar, maybe it's a Aston Martin. Maybe you want to go into a supermarket and you know that Tesco's or Carrefour or whatever it happens to be is going to say, here's this apple, it's 79 cents here, or it's however much it costs. but you want to compare the price with somewhere down the street, or you want to find out what's the nutritional information of this fruit that maybe I don't recognize. It's not an apple, it's a tropical fruit, something like that. Those things are very, very difficult to type into Google. They're very difficult to access using text-based search terms. What we're doing is we're developing the app to become a way of searching visually. So you point the app at the red dress, you point it at the apple, you point it at the car, you point it at a book cover whose front cover you don't recognize, and it tells you information about it which adds to your experience. This really is easier to explain with video. So I'm going to show you our advertising spot about it. I'll tell you a little bit more about how we're implementing it, and then I'm going to conclude slightly ahead of time with one of the most exciting applications of the technology that we've seen.
We are led through this world by our senses, guided by them on our journey of discovery. It's a world in which sight guides all other senses, in which something's appearance stays with us long after we've forgotten its smell, its taste, how it feels, or sounds. It's a world in which images tell stories faster than words. But do we understand what we're seeing? Are all of our curiosities being answered? Visual search, to let the eyes take us places words never could. It's time to tell your story visually. Welcome to Visual Search. Welcome to Generation Curious. Welcome to Blippar's New Dawn.
Okay, so aside from encouraging people to walk around forests holding tablets up in the air to find out what it is that they're looking at, what that does to the world, we feel, is it kind of completes the circle with what I was talking about earlier between brands and education, and really adding this virtual layer on top of the world. It allows you to make the world, in the physical world and the digital world, complement one another and not work as two completely separate environments. So it obviously has huge commercial purpose. Where do we want to apply it in education? Well, it's not just about pointing it at a building and finding out the history of it. It's not just about pointing it at any work of art and finding out more about that. It's also about channeling digital content directly to a student who needs it at that exact moment and find it difficult to access even digitally because they don't know what to search for. So that could be the work of art or the statue, but it could also be a kid doing his homework and he writes down an equation and he gets to a point in his working and he's stuck. And he finds it difficult to ask his teacher because he might be doing it in the evening, but also he might be shy, he might be scared. He may not have well-educated mathematical parents at home. He may not have the older sibling to mentor him. He may find it difficult to even know what to search for online. He can point Blippar at it. It will recognize the equation. It'll recognize the other equations. It'll know what subject is this that he's looking at. And it will say, don't worry, here's a piece of content which is related to that, which is related to where else you are in the educational journey, to what else you've been looking at, to what else you've been blipping. so that we make sure that it's experience relevant. And we feel that if you can turn the world into an interactive place like that, then you can have an absolutely transformative effect, not only on how people learn, but how effectively they learn. And you can also do what I'm about to show you, which is a demo that we carried out in South by Southwest. And just to let you know, this dog is the Blippar New York office dog. It's, I think, like 2 months old. It was on stage at South by Southwest, kind of walked on stage, sat down, and so our CEO, Ambarish, who was presenting, decided that he would like to know more about the species, about maybe how to feed it, potentially even where to get one. And so this is what happens. Perfect. So as you can see, and the reason this doesn't have a set, this is not a TV spot. This is one of our marketing team behind Rish, just after the demo. He points Blippar at the dog, and Blippar recognizes it, says, this is what breed of dog this is. Here's some advice on how to take care of it. Here's some more information about how that breed came about. The use case of that, what we love about that is not necessarily because we think everyone's going to go out and blip dogs. Some people will, and some people will find it incredibly useful. It's even incredibly useful educationally, because obviously veterinary medicine is a massive space, and I wouldn't for one moment say that doesn't have a purpose. What's really exciting about it is the technological capability to make the dog walking past you in the street a way of searching the internet for any information, any Instagram pictures, any tweets, any relevant digital information about that dog. It allows you to do, through visual search, what you might do if you sat down at a cafe half an hour later and tried to search for the breed of that cute dog that you saw. So we think that it not only transforms education, not only transforms marketing, but also, we hope, transforms how people everywhere in any field view the world and access information about it. I'm more than welcome, since we have a bit of time, to field any questions, because I'm aware that this is not a technology or an industry that people know a huge amount about. But if not, then thank you again to the organizers. It was a pleasure to be here, and please do grab me during the break if you want to talk privately. Thanks, everyone.
Do we have any questions?
That's an excellent question, and very, very relevant to some of the R&D that's going into the education team. It's not just Chinese language, it's any language. And in fact, Chinese, Japanese, well, all kinds of Chinese and Japanese, Arabic, even Cyrillic, these are all have one thing in common versus Roman alphabets, and that is that the script is different. It's not just that we have no idea how to pronounce or what the word means. We sometimes don't even know which bit is a word and which bit is a letter. And Chinese is particularly relevant in that sense. So we think that there's a huge amount we can do for those kinds of languages. More specifically, the immediate kind of consumer-focusing use case for being able to recognize a language like that, which is completely possible and very much on the roadmap, is obviously it allows you to kind of go to that country and access information where normally you'd be lost, sometimes literally, but you'd also be lost in terms of like what is in this packet of food or whatever. Not only what price is it, what is in it, what is it saying. But also from an educational point of view, which is kind of the next step, it has massive benefits for testing that what you've drawn in your character as you practice and practice and practice, which is so often how we must learn Mandarin, which to my cost, I know, and that is something that I most certainly didn't see through, because it takes so much practice and repetition just to get the drawing right of the characters. You can make sure you can test yourself like that. You can find out what a word means and you can hear it pronounced. You can parse it, as they say in language, that you can analyze exactly what each bit means and how it works grammatically. Very much on the roadmap, and a really, really great use case for not just visual search, but also the recognition of characters and text. No?
I do have another question.
Sure.
What about recognizing the content of a product? My wife, since quite some time, she's analyzing what really the content of the product she buys. Very often we have a lot of additives, and we have to have perfect knowledge to understand what sort of side effects we can have by buying this product. Because we have a lot of industrial products which are really very negative for our health.
Absolutely, and we hope that in a few months' time, not quite yet, but we hope that no longer will we unknowingly buy things which contain products that we didn't know were there. That's really an in-the-moment and very easy way to explore that kind of content. So it's not something you have to maybe search for later if you remember to search for what's in this content that you've just seen in the supermarket. You can blip it, find out nutritional information, find out the provenance of what it is you're blipping, find out any let's say any news or tweets about this product that's been reviewed by consumers negatively or otherwise, which can actually be an incredibly powerful way of finding out about a product, is just to search for it on Twitter, because people do express their views like that. This is kind of information, it's all there on the internet. It's just getting it into getting it in front of our eyeballs is typically done through more traditional search methods. We believe that with visual search, that can work really well with text search. It's very much a complementary product to not only make it happen in the moment, but make it happen when perhaps you don't even know what you're kind of searching for. What is the information that you can see with your eyes? Connecting that to digital information is so far something that's been impossible. So another great use case, and one we're very much exploring. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What about the database? Do you create your own database about, for example, answers to the pictures you take, or do you connect it with internet search results?
Sure. So, without going into too much detail with people from Google and present, there's essentially that this has been it's been the goal of the company since it was founded, is to be a visual search company. What we have been building is essentially it's a machine learning database. So it has the ability not only to recognize this page in the textbook, which typically we would do by uploading this page in JPEG format to our database, but it also has the ability to recognize lots of different things which sort of look like that, or maybe sort of look like an apple, and learn that the 4,000th and first thing that we haven't shown yet is also an apple. So it's adding essentially an intelligence to image recognition, which has been a huge amount of research and heavily algorithmatized and so on. Where does the information come from that once you do recognize it, where does information come from? Well, it comes from a variety of sources. So one thing that's always there is, for example, the social channel. Another thing that's very often there is more information about it. Now, typically that might go to like a news site or a Wikipedia or a very universal content store. But also, because it's recognized what it is and it's intelligently decided, I know what this is, I also know where you are, so I know not only what this is, but what context you're looking at it. Here's some more content, and how we choose that content is a combination of curation and automation. So it's not the case that we just kind of hope that the machine gets it right. We're also, for example, in education, putting in things where we say, okay, if it's this, like it's a newspaper picture or something, then show this content, or deliver this content, because it's context that really only a human can judge. We're doing part of that curation as well as automating part of it. So that's a kind kind of vague and complex answer to what seems to be a simple question, but basically a bit of everything and a bit of, covering all bases. I hope it answered your question. Go ahead, Manny.
I'm working on policy.
Yeah.
Opinion on content on these sort of things, particularly on abuse of children on the internet. Are you going to have filters and protection mechanisms so that it can't be used?
Absolutely. We do that with our educational blips already. We make sure that you can't, for example, navigate elsewhere to any, let's say, an alcohol brand, where there's, it's not morally off to work with them, but it is probably morally off to show it to young people, and it's definitely morally off to show it to young people under the, let's say, legal drinking age. We don't necessarily do like a recommendation like that through blips anyway. It's an experience for this particular object, and it's carefully designed for that object or page or brand or whatever. So it's not that it's not quite that by going into Blippar you can then 50 minutes later be looking at lots of content which is not something you've searched for. With visual search as a piece of technology, when you blip something now, obviously, as I said earlier, it's kind of automating what you can get out of it. It's telling you more about what you're looking at. We will not allow any material which is of like dubious kind of dubious morally and ethically, like for example pornography, and for example like illegal activity in a certain country. These kind of things is what I'm talking about. We won't allow that to be transmitted to the user. And for those of a young age, that filter is even stronger. So for us, it's about getting the right content to someone who wants to find out more about or have an experience about what they're looking at. It's not about just allowing them to browse the internet as freely as you would if you were in your bedroom or whatever it happens to be. It's about contextualizing the visual search that someone is intending to undergo. Something that it's a key part of all the R&D behind this is to make sure that it's not allowing someone to who we don't want to see necessarily certain content to get exposed to the kind of content which it does exist on the internet. It's basically, long and the short of it is, this is about a much more context-rich way of delivering content to a viewer. There's almost no context where we would want, where nefarious content should be delivered to a viewer who shouldn't see that content. So it very much isn't part of what we want to do with the product. Is that it? Oh, one at the back there.
I assume this application can also recognize faces, so how do you deal with possible issues?
That's actually what I was doing when I was pretending to show that. I just got a quick LinkedIn download of everybody in the room, and it doesn't recognize faces yet. It's yet, I said. It doesn't necessarily. Basically, it's something that we're very much looking at. We have some of the not even some of. We have the brightest minds in image recognition and AR working with us, and it's obviously something that everyone from a wearable like a Google Glass or a Magic Leap to some of our competitors like Orasmo and Dacry are looking at, because it's very, very useful to be able to recognize someone's face. There's obviously privacy concerns, there's security concerns, and we as a company, we would say this, but it's genuinely true, and it is truly inspirational to work at a company like this, given my own philosophies and goals, as I've told you. We don't want this to be an all-consuming, I use that word nefarious, but morally even suspect company which does things which impinge on people's privacy. All we want to do is we want to make it, to transform how people search for the things about the world around them, to transform how people view the world and have more interactive experiences. and also obviously to transform how companies get their brand message across and how educators get their content across. So with something like facial recognition, it's something that we're obviously looking at from an R&D point of view, but it's something that we're going to be really careful and very ethically sound about how we do it. It's a shame that my CEO, Rish, couldn't be here today. He's one of the most kind of inspirational and positive people you can meet. And he doesn't really care about making this the most valuable company in the world or anything like that. He's had entrepreneurial successes in the past. He's done an incredibly good job building this business as a sustainable one. His motivation is to change the world and to do it in a really great way. And he inspires us all to do that, and every Monday team meeting he tells us that. Stay humble, work hard, and try and change the world. So with something like facial recognition, if we can change the world in a positive way by doing it, we'll do it.